Okay, the time is 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting of July 23rd, the meeting of the Millcreek Board of Supervisors. We'll call that to order. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded by WQLN, both video and audio, and is broadcast on a Spectrum government channel and on the YouTube.com channel with closed captioning available. Those will be put out a bit later this week. Moving on to item number 3, public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. Do we have any comment from the public? Okay, being none, we'll note that for the minutes. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Do we have any additions or corrections from among the board here? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 9th meetings.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 5 is approval of the bills. Of course, we have the batch of bills there. Any questions or comments in regard to that? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the bills.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 6 is the second quarter financial presentation by our treasurer, Mark Shahesky. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you. All right, this is something that we started a little while ago to do a quarterly public presentation of financial position for the township. So we're doing this again. Oh, that's right, it's over here. Someplace. 2019 actual versus 2019 budget. Property tax revenue is running ahead of schedule year to date. It's running about 91% of budget versus 80%, which is a figure I used for trying to smooth out the real estate tax collections. The real estate taxes, we get most of our money by April 30th. Then we get another big chunk of money by the end of June. And the rest of the year it just trickles in, because that's the way, you know, everybody either pays discount or pays on time, and then everybody else is just paying late. So that one ends up being pretty high percentage. We've got a very good collection record too, so that's another reason why we're at 91%. We would, if we had collection problems, you would see that number lower as well. The income taxes are a little bit behind, and that's mostly due to timing, due to an accounting function. The first quarter receipts are rolled into last year to do something called a modified accrual method of accounting. So all those receipts for the first quarter aren't there, but then we'll get to the end of the year and we'll take all the first quarter of next year's receipts and roll them into this year, and we should be in pretty good shape. We're actually, because the population isn't growing a whole bunch, so our level of income from income taxes are pretty level. The same thing's true with the other taxes. That's mostly the LST tax, the local services tax. It, just like EIT, is the first quarter is in the last year, and the first quarter of next year will be into this year. So we're just always a little bit behind due to accounting. Grants are what I like to call cliff revenues. Because what happens is you get a big chunk of money all at once, and it only comes one time a year. State aid for pensions comes in September. We're going to get, I don't know, a good chunk of change. I don't think they've got that determined yet. Somewhere around $1 million. Things like the 904 operating grant for the recycling center, that's usually $120,000. That's usually applied for in December. So it's just one of those things, you're going to hit these big chunks of money all at once, and it's hard to present that in a budget situation. Right. When compared to 2019 to 2018, you can see the numbers are all pretty close. They're all, you can see the real estate tax percentage is very close. and all the rest of the little slices of the pie are pretty much so on track. So it means we're in a typical cycle. We're not really too far ahead, too far behind. We are actually slightly ahead, total revenue, 2018 versus 2019 by $101,000. But that's could be timing on any one item. So we're actually in pretty good shape as far as that goes. When we get to the year-to-date comparison for expenses, actual and budget are pretty close. The public safety is running a little bit better than budget, and they're all really really very good shape. Nothing really sticking out there. We get to the next slide, 19 versus 18. We'll see a little bit different configuration with the slices. Public services year over year expenses are up, but they're within budgeted parameters. So we're not overspending. We just had a budget increase due to additional operating costs. It's usually the equipment that's the problem, and when it breaks, they're chunking up logs and rims and whatnot to make mulch, and so therefore it puts a pretty heavy burden on maintenance costs. We get to selected expenses. You can see that in administration we're slightly to the good on salaries. We're doing a little bit behind on health insurance, and that's because we self-fund health insurance. And it really depends on your experience at any point in time. Because the pool of people that are in the administration pool, they've had worse than expected experience for this particular part of the year. Overall, we're in great shape for health insurance. You'll see this as we go through the next couple of slides, because we're $8,000 behind, $400, or hundreds of thousands of dollars ahead on the other departments where they're really big numbers. Other benefits are slightly negative, and that's in part due to unemployment compensation. We don't usually budget for that because we don't know when it's going to be incurred, and so therefore we've got an instance of that, and so small numbers. And legal is, we're to the good, but there's a little bit of a timing issue there. The bills tend to lag by 1 month, so we're not really up to date with comparison to the budget, actual to budget. Oops, wrong direction. Planning development, they're to the good pretty heavily on the salaries, in part because they had planned for an engineering position that they've been looking for and haven't found anybody, so it's an unfilled position. Other benefits goes sort of hand in hand with that. That's going to be workers' comp, FICA taxes, things like that that go along with the salary cost.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yeah.
I noticed health insurance isn't included. Is planning development?
Yeah, right this year, all the planning development people are in the admin.
Okay.
Come next year, the idea is to split these out into the departments where they belong.
All right.
So that we have a better idea of what the true operating cost of every department is.
Okay. Just making sure. Thank you.
Oops, wrong direction. Okay, in public safety, we're running very nicely to the good, about almost $316,000. Part of that is due to an effort to try to keep overtime down. Also, too, we will incur some extra overtime come the end of the year where there's more holidays, double Thanksgiving holiday, Christmas holidays. Those will all get, the police force doesn't shut down just because it's a holiday. So there's extra overtime that will ultimately get incurred there. You can see health insurance, we're $499,000 to the good. And that's just, once again, we've been lucky that the pool of people that are in the public safety pool have been healthier than expected this particular year. So we'll see how that ultimately ends up. I think we're still going to be in pretty good shape. We probably aren't going to be $500,000 ahead, but even if we're a couple $100,000 ahead, that's we're in good shape. Other benefits go along with the salaries being lower, FICA taxes, workers' comp, they all are salary-based. And then the contribution to the fire departments, that's usually just a timing thing. It's one of these things where they have to get reports into us on a quarterly basis. If they are delayed in getting reports in, they don't get a contribution. So it's really just a matter of them getting caught up with the actual spending or reporting. And their quarters, for the most part, just ended. So we're, at the end of June, we're close. Public Works salaries are running behind. That's in part from overtime, in part from some planned retirements that haven't happened yet or may not happen. Some people wait till the end of the year to let you know that they're going to retire, but we have to plan for it all year. So we sometimes find ourselves to the good just because they don't retire. And there's some periodic changes too, where they're absent positions, where somebody leaves, it takes a couple weeks, couple months to fill the position. The budget can't assume that somebody's not here, so therefore you'll end up with some positive salary as well. You can see health insurance are also running about $131,000 to the good. So we've got $630,000 to the good between the two departments. Other benefits are tied once again. And then the snow removal that happens basically in Q1 and Q4, but the budget's spread evenly throughout the 4 quarters. Public services salaries are a little bit behind, but that's in part because their salary expense is incurred primarily at quarter 2, quarter 3. There really are no operations in quarter 1 and quarter 4 because it's the end of the year, it's snowing and things like that. They don't work. But the budget assumes that those are occurring throughout the year. The operating costs are running to the good by $22,000. That's a good thing. So that's positive. Parks and Rec, their salaries are good, almost $61,000. Part of that is their big chunk of expense for salaries happens in the summer months with all the part-timers for programs. Also, too, there's some retirements that were planned in there as well that may or may not happen, but you still got to plan for it or you're going to be caught short. They are, once again, too, are running slightly negative on their insurance at $4,000 roughly. It's, that could be timing as much as anything. And then the other benefits go along once again. The Sewer Revenue Fund, you can see that their actual revenue is doing, and this is showing it graphically. We'll get into the numbers on the next page. Sewer revenue is almost $5 million for the first half of the year. The budget was 4.7, and last year's actual was around 4.8. We're running a little bit ahead. That must mean more activity. It's not more users. It must be more commercial users that are driving that revenue. The households, like all of us, we just pay the $84 a quarter, and there aren't thousands of new households, so it's got to be driven off commercial revenue. Wages are running favorable. I think that's in part due to some planned retirements and some timing as well. Maintenance and repair is slightly over, about $11,000 over budget. This is one of those things where the budget just assumes a straight line, and sometimes the things that get broken are sometimes expensive. And so therefore, you'll get a chunk of expense in any one particular period, but the budget may have to catch up. We may have a very good quarter the next quarter and be right back. We're not that far off. Utilities, let's see, maintenance and repair. Yeah, I said that was a little bit over. Maintenance or utilities are a little bit over budget, but running right track on last year. I think we probably were just a little bit under in estimating the utility cost for this year. But but even at the end of the year, I don't think we'll be more than a couple $1,000s off. In terms of administrative expenses, and these are basically the capital items, their projects are running a little bit behind schedule. They got a little bit later start than they wanted on some of the capital programs. There's a whole bunch of sewer pump station upgrades that are in process, but that's the thing, they're in process, and that expense will get caught up as we get further into the year. Same thing with the capital. Timing has been real bare. We thought we were going to have the jetter vac here like first quarter of this year. It may get here at the end of next month. It's crazy, the market for big truck chassis, and that's the biggest problem there, is actually getting the truck vehicle to, and that's actually going to, the next slide also reflects that somewhat. Our capital plan was $4.2 million. We've got committed about $1.17 million, leaving uncommitted about $3 million. That's in part because there's lots of projects on there, some of which are just not going to get into this year. They required more planning, more design than was anticipated, and so therefore they'll be carried over till next year. They're not, they weren't good projects, they just too much stuff on everybody's plate. It's really what it boils down to a large extent. Other than that, questions?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Okay. Moving on to item number 7, which is signature authorization. Back to you, Mark Jaheski.
Okay.
Make a presentation on this.
What this is for the pension plan. Periodically, there are trades need to occur for things like just funding the accounts that benefits are paid from, or our financial advisor recommends that we make changes to the composition of the assets in the pension fund. These are, right now I'm the only person that is authorized to sign, and so therefore what I'm requesting is that we add the assistant treasurer to the list of authorized signers so that, you know, if I get run over by a bus or whatever, there's still somebody that can transact business.
Mark, do you need us to authorize the position, or do we actually have to name the person in the position
I believe what we
specifically?
did when we authorized me was the position. The one thing it does, you know, if for whatever reason the person isn't here, if the position still exists, the signing authority still exists.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, that I would make a motion to authorize the assistant treasurer to have signature authority with the pension plan.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you. Item number 8, bids and quotations. Our first one is for a vibrating tamper from the Public Works Department. Gary Snyder.
Good evening, gentlemen. We are seeking permission to purchase a vibrating tamper for the sewer department. We received 2 quotes, the first from Admar for $2,850, the second from Madeira Equipment for $2,450. This is a budgeted purchase, and it would be my recommendation to purchase the tamper from Madeira Equipment for $2,450.
Okay. And just for those who do not know what this is something used to backfill and bring back the compaction around any excavations that we do.
Correct.
That's what the purpose of it is. So with that said, I'll make a motion to approve that purchase from Madeira for $2,450. I'm sorry. I'll make that in the form of a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Next item is Westlake School ADA Compliance Parking Lot Project. The announcement and the award, it comes from Planning and Development. Matt Waldinger.
Thank you. Good evening. In accordance with our ongoing settlement for ADA-related issues, we are making improvements to any facilities that the township utilizes for its programs. Westlake School is one of those facilities. It's used by our Parks and Recreation Department for several programs. And in order to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, we need to place 2 handicap parking spaces in the west rear parking lot. So at Township Engineer Ann Sokol sought out bids for that work. She received 3 quotes for it. The first was from Maya Brothers Construction for $7,200. Next was Amendola Development for $9,350. And she sought a quote from Vavala Construction, who did not respond. So it would be the recommendation of Township Engineer Ann Sokol that the work be awarded to Maya Brothers Construction for the amount of $7,200.
Okay. Any questions from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to award the contract to Maya Brothers Construction for the cost of $7,200.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
How about yes?
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, thank you. Our next item is item number 9, public hearing on land development and subdivision plans. The first one is for Westminster Development LLC. It's a small subdivision plan. A small subdivision plan to show the creation of a 5,702 square foot lot that is to become an integral part of tax parcel ID 3380-417-3.12, located on the east line of south of Pacific Avenue and south of the intersection of West 38th in Tract 76. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. At their regular meeting of Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this subdivision with the requirement that the mentioned 5,702 square foot parcel is to become an integral part of 3380-417-3.12.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody here representing this application?
Good evening, Mike Sanford, the surveyor that prepared the plan.
Okay.
Just here to provide representation.
Okay. If I recall, there was a subdivision done before on this, and that's what made that jagged line, is that correct? Stepped, different directions. Am I correct on that?
Who direct that?
Mr. Sanford.
Yes, the original subdivision a few months ago was a fairly irregular parcel,
Yeah.
shaped parcel. Then we did a land development for the proposed building and parking
Okay.
that's now under construction.
Okay.
The person that wants to use the building is looking with a mind's eye to possible future expansion.
Okay.
And they looked at their plan and said, how can we grow? Where could we grow? And we might need just a little bit more property if and
Okay.
when.
If and when,
So this is
okay.
just a kind of square off the property, give them a little extra
Okay.
if they chose to grow in the future.
Okay, so that's the reasoning behind it then?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Anybody?
Mr. Waldinger, any concerns brought up at the Planning Commission meeting?
No, there were no concerns either by the commission or no one spoke in opposition to this.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this matter, whether in support or in opposition? Okay, well, being none. Okay, no further questions for you. Thank you, Mr. Sanford. Okay. Call for a motion on this matter before us.
I'll make a motion to approve the Westminster Development LLC small subdivision.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, our next one, subdivision plan for Grouse Hollow Phase 2. It's a major subdivision, plan to show the creation of lots 10 through 17, 8 lots in total with associated stormwater, utilities, and street improvements. These lots will have frontage along Grouse Hollow Drive, which will be extended to Amy Avenue north of East Gore Road in Tract 939. It's index number 951-008. Do we have anybody here representing that application? Okay, if you would, sir, please come up in front and identify yourself and sign the register there, too, so we have...
My name is Alan Hawthorne.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead there, but hold on a second, I'm sorry, I got out of turn there. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I got out of turn there.
At the regular meeting of July 2nd, 2019, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this major subdivision with one requirement. They asked that a note be on the Mylar that vehicle access to Arden Road is prohibited from Lot 12.
Okay. Okay, now, I'm sorry there, sorry to get you out of turn there, sir.
All right, my name is Alan Hawthorne. I'm here to represent myself and Ann Elizabeth Baldwin as successors in interest in the Grouse Hollow subdivision, located on the north side of East Gore Road, 1200 block. Overall plan and phase 2, I believe, were previously reviewed and accepted by Millcreek Township. I'm here to ask Supervisor acceptance of phase 2, which consists of 8 lots.
Yeah.
Number 10 through 17, the extension of Grouse Hollow Drive north to connect to the east end of Amy Avenue. Phase 2 was reviewed and accepted by the Planning Commission July 2nd. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Questions from the board? Being none? John, you have something there?
I'm just rolling, I'm curious, the restricting access to Arden Road, is that a request? Is that something we can enforce? Is that a requirement?
Typically, we do that for lots that have double frontage access to both. This isn't quite that same situation. That's usually when you have lots between 2 parallel streets. We did have a request, or a concern, I should say, raised from one of the residents on Arden that somebody may be using that for vehicular access. I really think topographically it would not be possible to even do that, but a note on the Mylar also would not hurt to just prohibit that.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with including that, sir?
I'm sorry, I can't-
Are you comfortable with including that note on the
Absolutely,
Mylar?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anybody in the audience to speak on this, whether in support or in opposition? Being none, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Hawthorne. Okay, call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the subdivision plan for Grouse Hollow Phase 2 with the acceptance of the requests put forth by the Planning Commission to deny vehicular access to Arden Road from Lot 12.
Okay, we hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
How about yes?
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes?
And I also vote yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, our next item is item number 10, ordinance 2019-13. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, this is an ordinance to amend the fire code and the property maintenance code of the township. The purpose is to make changes to simply officially adopt the 2015 edition of the International Fire Code and the 2015 edition of the International Property Maintenance Code as the applicable fire code and property maintenance code in Millcreek Township. It replaces the prior codes that had been referenced within the township ordinances, and all the changes that are reflected in this ordinance are made necessary due to the adoption of the new version of each code. So there are some number changes and a couple of language changes that had to be incorporated as well when adopting these new additions.
Okay. Questions from the board? Being none, I'll call for a
No,
Okay.
no question.
If not, no questions, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2019-13.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes?
And I also vote yes. Item number 11 is ordinances under review. It's proposed ordinance 2019-14. Mr. Shaw.
So I think this is an ordinance that is necessary ultimately to adopt, I believe it's to adopt the Millcreek Police Pension Plan. It's still under review, and once those issues are resolved, it'll get published and then be available for a vote.
Right, so there is no official action
No
on
action
that
at this
one
point,
tonight,
correct.
At this point. Okay. Moving on to item number 12, which is Resolution 2019 R36. A resolution by the Millcreek Township Board of Supervisors amending the procedures governing the sale or disposal of township-owned personal property. I'll refer that back over to you, Mr. Shaw.
Sure. As part of a review of various past resolutions, we came across Resolution 96R24, which governed the disposal of township-owned personal property. At that time, the limitation on the value of personal property was $1,000. Since then, state law has changed, and it is now $2,000. So this revision in Resolution 2019 R36 simply recognizes the change in state law from 1,000 to 2,000 for the limitation.
Okay, so that's the only change in it, so.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Shaw, I guess just for clarification for the audience's sake, I think the wording of the ordinance leads to confusion when it talks about township-owned personal property. We're not talking about confiscated property here. We're talking about items that are owned by the township that are less than $2,000
Correct.
value.
Vehicles that may have been owned by the township, for 15 or 20 years that they're looking to sell that aren't worth $2,000. This adopts or reaffirms the procedures that were adopted.
And the second-class township code refers to those as personal property. not
Correct.
as township property under a certain value, which is
Correct.
what the term actually refers to.
Yes, this does not deal with anything that the township has, obtained through whatever, means in terms of the police department confiscating materials and so forth. This simply is township-owned property that's worth less than $2,000. And on occasion, we have those circumstances, mostly Mr. Snyder bringing those up to our attention where he's trying to unload materials that are sitting in his yard. So, well, not his yard, but the township's yard.
His personal yard.
His personal yard.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
No questions? If not, I'll call for a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019 R36.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes?
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes on that. Okay, item number 13 is Resolution 2019 R37. It's a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015 R20 and the Municipal Records Manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. This is something we do, it seems like every meeting, and this request comes from Chris Filson, who is our IT director over in the police department. He's asking that Millcreek Police Department dash cam videos to be deleted between the dates of July 24th and August the 6th when they reach their required retention period. So this is our...
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest the August 6th probably should be August 13th. That's when the next
Okay,
meeting
we'll
is.
amend that, yes, yeah, you're right there, yeah. We'll amend that, Cheryl, to reflect August 13th. That is correct, yeah. Okay, with that stated there, I call for a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019 R37.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes?
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, moving on to item number 14, which is the Embrace Millcreek implementation. It's a resolution 2019 R38. It's a resolution authorizing submission of application for the Multimodal Transportation Fund grant and the local match commitment. John, this is right in your wheelhouse here. I know this is yours.
Sure, but I'm going to defer to Mr. Waldinger.
Okay.
Matt's put a lot of work in this application,
Okay.
as he did back in the fall. So,
Yep.
Matt, if you want to give us the background on this?
Yep, thank you. As Mr. Morgan mentioned, if you recall, in November of 2018, we submitted a grant application to PennDOT for their multimodal transportation fund. This grant was to improve pedestrian and bicycle connection from the Tom Ridge Environmental Center to Presque Isle State Park. It consisted of an extension, a half-mile extension of the 12-foot wide multi-use trail from where it ends at the park entrance up to the Tom Ridge Environmental Center. It would include some new retaining walls where necessary. Also, pedestrian safety improvements were included to calm traffic and make safer crossing in the area near Sarah's and the condominiums just outside the park entrance. A 5-foot sidewalk would be installed on the west side of Peninsula Drive near those condominiums so that people could cross over and then walk to Beach 1 safely along the edge of the road. As I mentioned, that grant application was submitted to PennDOT last fall. Unfortunately, we were not selected to receive that grant. There is another grant opening. The Department of Community and Economic Development and the Commonwealth Financing Authority have a very similar pot of multimodal funds available for grants. The requirements are largely the same type of projects. This project qualifies for that grant. So one of the requirements of the grant is that the township pass a resolution requesting the grant funds. One other item that would be needed would be the chairman's signature on a match, a letter guaranteeing match from the township. So what I'd ask today is that the township, or that the board, look at passing resolution 2019 R38, which requests the match from the town, or from the Commonwealth Financing Authority. I believe when I submitted the resolution, I had a rough number for the grant amount of $3 million. Going over the budget with Township Engineer Ann Sokol, we've come to an exact amount of the grant request. It would be $2,788,867. And that would require a 30% match by the township of $1,195,229. So again, I would request that the board approve resolution 2019 R38, as well as authorize the chairman to sign a letter stating that the township will offer the required match.
Okay. Okay. Questions or comments from the board?
The only comment I have is, Matt and his team have done an excellent job going after these funds in the past. Written some, I think, excellent applications. He's gone out and got dozens of support letters from across the community. And this project really is probably one of the keystone projects that came out of Embrace Millcreek as far as really transforming the gateway to Presque Isle. That really we got wide-ranging community support during the comprehensive plan process. So I think this is a natural next step for us. It's the same step we tried to take last year upon adopting the comprehensive plan, and we're taking another crack at it.
Okay. Okay, so Matt, that number was $3 million that we're looking at for the grant.
Would be the amount of grant that would be awarded.
That would be awarded, and then our percentage, again, would be how much?
30%, which is roughly 1.2 million.
Okay, so 1.2 million of township money to be dedicated for this project, should we be awarded the grant then?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2019 R38.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I will second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes.
If I could, real quick, I think we need a supplemental motion on top of that to authorize the chair to execute the letter for the match.
I think those are all included in the resolution.
It is on there. It's item number 2 on the, sorry, Mark. Is that what you're asking there?
That would be to execute all documents necessary. That probably covers it then. That's
Okay,
fine.
yeah. If we need for clarification, we could add that on there. Okay. Okay. Moving on, item number 15, which is resolution 2019 R39, resolution to approve PennDOT general grant agreement for federal aid highway projects. Mark Shaw.
Sure. This is a resolution relating to an agreement that's necessary with PennDOT to get federal highway funds in order to cover what I believe is a paving project for West Gore Road between Peach Street and Hillcrest Avenue, and Glen Ridge Road from between Cherry Street and Perry Highway. This would authorize or approve, it would indicate that the Board of Supervisors are approving the execution of this agreement, and that Ann Sokol would be designated as the contact person for Millcreek Township. We have reviewed the agreement. It is similar to prior grant agreements that we have, that the township has executed on similar type projects. So I would, from my perspective, would recommend approval.
And of course, this is a a road we've had a lot of complaints about, the condition of, so, in the West Gore Road, and hopefully we'll get it fixed up, getting this project, get the grant from the federal government, so, yeah, good work on this for everybody, so. Do I hear a motion, or on this?
I'll make the motion, but I also want to take a moment to recognize Mr. Waldinger and Ann Sokol again for their work on this funding. I mean, Matt, what was it, about $200,000, $300,000 received from the state for these two paving projects?
Yeah, it was between 2 and 3. I don't have the exact amount in front of me, I'm sorry.
So we are going after funding for roads as well, Mr. Bear.
Yes. Wherever we can get it.
So, and again, I want to thank Matt and Ann for the representation on the Erie MPO to help secure these funds and all their work to go through the very arduous process of PennDOT grant administration to get us to this point, so.
There's books written about that, isn't there?
My goodness, yes.
Very thick books.
Very thick ones, okay. So, did I hear a motion on that?
I will make
You made
a
the
motion to approve Resolution 2019 R39 to get these projects moving.
Could I hear a second on that?
I will second that.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Item number 16 is a financial security request, or a release request from Laurel Springs Phase 5B, Pastori Incorporated developer, Matt Waldinger.
Thank you. Yes, Pastori Incorporated has requested release of their financial security for Laurel Springs Phase 5B. This is the last open phase of Laurel Springs. This would completely close out the project. We do have a letter from Greenman Peterson. Actually, when they sent it, it was Hill Engineering at the time, certifying that their stormwater management system has been constructed to specification. We do have a engineer certification from Township Engineer Ann Sokol that all of the public improvements have been completed and that security should be released. So at this time, I ask for release of PNC Bank check number 38082 in the amount of $20,020.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial security release for Pastori Inc.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Next item is item number 17, acceptance of towing contract terminations. Mr. Shaw?
Yes, this is a follow-up to the board's actions at the last meeting approving the towing ordinance amendments. At the time, there were existing agreements that were in place with 3 towing companies, and in order to replace those agreements with the ordinance structure that was approved, those agreements need to be terminated. We did receive requests from each of the towing contractors to terminate those agreements, and I would simply recommend that these be accepted to officially terminate those agreements effective July 1 of 2019. And then obviously from that point forward, the towing arrangements are governed by the ordinance that was passed by the Board of Supervisors at the last meeting.
Okay, so just for clarification, our action here is to accept these. And
Yes,
we
and,
need a roll call vote on
and they're
that.
from Eddie's Collectibles, D'Amico's Auto Body and Towing, and Rick
And
Sornberger
Sornberger,
Automotive Towing.
Okay. Okay, so I call for a motion to accept the termination of the agreements for Richard Sornberger, Robert Filipowski representing D'Amico's Auto Body, and also for Eddie's Collectible, Edward Whiteman. So I call for that in the form of a motion to approve.
I'd make a motion to accept the towing contract terminations as stated.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 18, Safe Harbor Agreement. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, this is an agreement between the police department and Safe Harbor relating to various referrals that occur throughout the year. It's an annual agreement that the parties execute, and I would always recommend approval of this agreement.
Okay, and this involves with the police department, of course. Okay, any questions? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Safe Harbor.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 19 is the approval of the emergency management volunteers. Jim Bach.
Okay, we have a request from Caleb Dixon from our Code Department and Emergency Management Department, requesting approval for 4 emergency management volunteers. Charlie Davis, Andrew Pennock, Michael Fries, and Wendy Young. These are individuals that help out the Emergency Management Department on a volunteer basis. They come in at the direction of the Emergency Management Coordinator as needs arise with different emergencies that would come up in the township. If there's an event that volunteers are needed. And he's requesting the approval of these 4 individuals for that.
Okay.
Put that in a motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, communications. Mr. Zaheski, do you have anything?
I just wanted to say that the liquid fuels auditor finished his work, and although his work is still subject to review by his superiors, there were no exceptions noted during the audit for 2017 and 2018. So we're going to we should end up with a clean bill of health there.
Okay, sounds good. That's great. Okay, John Morgan, do you have anything?
We have a request for a part-time hire for a part-time receptionist. This comes from Judy Zelina, the Director of Public Services. This is related to prolong the absence from our full-time receptionist due to an injury. Ms. Zelina is recommending the hire of Mary Beth Santucci as a part-time receptionist to begin on August 6, 2019, at the starting rate of $8 per hour.
Okay. Is that in the form of a motion then?
I'll put it for the form of motion.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. You gonna handle the training requests, or do you want me to do that? Or I can do that if you want.
Mr. Snyder?
Yep.
I'm seeking permission to send Dan Ouellette, John Bloss, Sam Camera, and myself to a class on identification and removal of inflow and infiltration into our sanitary sewer system. This is being put on by the Pennsylvania Rural Water Association and will be held at the Ambassador Conference Center on Peach Street on August 18th. John and Dan do the bulk of our I&I work. Sam is one of our new hires, and we are cross-training him in this work. For myself, it would be, I would get 6 more hours of continuing ed hours towards my sewer license.
Yeah.
The cost is $95 per person for a total of $380 plus wages and the use of the township vehicle.
Okay.
The money will come out of the training budget.
Okay.
It would be my recommendation to send the 4 employees to that class on August 18th.
Okay. Okay, I'll move to approve that training request. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. We have another one here regarding Fire Services Planning Seminar Administration. I think that's the one that Mark Shaw wants to go to.
Yes, this is a request for myself
Okay.
and Attorney Shaw and one other person from the Fire Commission to attend this training course that's being offered by PSATs down in Butler, PA on July 29th. Appears there's a wide range of components that is being offered for this course, and it looks like most of them are very pertinent to what's going on, you know, in the township with regards to our volunteer fire departments and the Fire Commission. So Thought it would be a good idea to attend this. It's a 4-hour class. I don't believe there's any charge for this because we've already paid for PSATs, or is this isn't included in that? Okay. So the cost would be $69 as we're members of that. Travel, I'm planning on possibly traveling in my personal vehicle, but other than that, we'd be traveling by department vehicle if necessary, so. Anything else, Mr. Shaw?
No, the topics certainly appear to be very relevant to the issues that that are here, and will give us a flavor for what other communities may be, how they may be approaching things, and how they're dealing with similar issues. So, it's something I saw come across our desk and thought it was something that was worthwhile, attending and trying to get some sense of what other communities may be doing to assist us in this process.
Sounds good. Okay, is that in the form of a motion?
Make a
there,
motion
Jim?
on that, sir.
Do I hear a second on that?
The motion is to authorize $69 for three registrants,
Yes.
and
Up to
either,
three.
either authorization of a township vehicle or reimbursement of personal travel costs.
I won't be seeking reimbursement.
What about our fire commissioner, who may be attending?
Pardon?
You said maybe say a member of the fire commission as well?
Yeah, we're looking to send one member of the fire commission.
Do we anticipate them submitting travel costs that we should authorize, or?
I think that might be the good idea.
And probably authorize it. I assume we'll carpool, but if not,
But it doesn't sound like there's going to be a carpool.
yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound it. Yeah. Okay. I think you're right.
I would
John.
approve the motion if you're comfortable with the friendly amendment to state that $69 per person for three registrants, and authorizing the use of a township vehicle and/or reimbursement of personal travel costs for mileage.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, anything else from you, John, for communication?
That's it for me.
Yeah, we're still under communications, so we kind of flip-flop back and forth there, so. Anything else for you there, if not? Okay. Couple things here. We had executive sessions on July the 12th and July the 18th. Talk about ongoing legal matters here with the township and other matters before us. Also, on August the 6th, Tuesday night, is the first Tuesday in August, which is also known as National Night Out. This year, once again, the Bell Valley Fire Department will be the host for that here in Millcreek Township. I think it starts at 5 o'clock, might be 6 o'clock, and there will be, I think, police departments from Millcreek Township, police officers from Millcreek Township, and I believe all of the Millcreek Fire Departments will at least have one piece of equipment there along with some firefighters. National Night Out, there's food. There's quite a list of sponsors. I happened to see this, just a flyer came across my desk a little bit earlier today. I don't have it with me, but be a nice way to attend and meet your neighbors and, just have a national night out. It's been going on for quite a few years now, so. Anyway, do you want to talk about the Acato picnic that's coming up there? Do you want that?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm all done there.
Okay, the 2019 Acato Annual Picnic has been moved from August 22nd to Wednesday, August 28th, 4 to 7 p.m. at Picnicana Park in Summit Township. We've been invited to that. So if anyone would like to attend that, I don't know if we have any.
Yeah, I'm going to attend.
Okay.
I plan to attend. So.
You have that much pull, you gotta move it, Mark? Is that what happened?
This was due to
I
the Tall Ships event.
Yeah, I think it
that
dawned
Mr.
on
Shaw
them
is hosting.
that they realized it was conflicting with the
With tall ships. Yeah.
tall ships.
Yeah. So,
Both events are equally important.
okay. Yeah, that in the form of a motion then, Jim?
I guess
Well,
my,
Inviting the past supervisors?
my I guess suggestion would be is it's not until the 28th, there'll be another meeting before then, maybe
Oh, okay.
authorize the exact number at that point, but I would raise the question of, in the past, former supervisors have been invited, and so it may be worthy of a motion and a response as to whether they should be invited to attend.
Yeah, I think Cheryl had done that already for the original date. Am I correct on that? You haven't said any? Okay, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we can move on that at our next meeting then, so, yeah, we don't have to act on it right
Guess I would
now.
move on that so that Cheryl can then send out the invitation
Oh,
to.
okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
I think it's been traditional for us to invite past supervisors.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we extend invitation to past supervisors again this year.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I would vote yes for that.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Okay. Anything else there, Jim?
I have nothing, no requests from the police department this
Okay.
week.
Good. Mr. Shaw, anything?
Nothing on my end.
Okay, Cheryl, do you have anything? Matt Waldinger, anything else?
Nothing further.
Gary Snyder? Okay. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Anybody want to make some comments about anything? Okay. Okay, if not, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, and the time is 7:55.
So moved.
Okay.